Hey, welcome to Classics You Slept Through. This is the book podcast where we read classic books and then discuss them with you. It's kind of like a mini book club that you can take with you anywhere you go. My name's Kyle Davis, your host, along with a girl who only receives callers every third Thursday past the second full moon if the month has a Y in its name. My sister, Meredith Davis.
Hey, Kyle. Usually you say, "How you doing today, Mare?" And I always overtalk you. So that's why I waited.
How are you doing today, Mare? Didn't give you my cue.
No.
The problem is I didn't leave my card, so you didn't know to respond.
My butler would collect them and give them to me if you had.
If I had, yes, this is very true. Do you know that we got those, I think, when I graduated college, or they taught us to? So we called her the cadet hostess. That was her official title. And she was like our etiquette instructor in college. And we actually went over this, like the leaving of your card.
Wow.
Yeah, no joke. And I have been to senior folks' homes where they've had a card tray sitting out in the foyer for you to leave a name card.
No. Really?
I actually have. Yeah, it's a little bizarre. I've never had name cards to leave, so.
I thought you got them at the end of graduating. You should have had them with you.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago. I think nowadays you would leave a business card, perhaps.
If you have business to do, not just.
Or if you have, just it's a contact.
People don't really stop.
I used to have business cards.
People don't stop by unannounced anymore. There isn't a day.
This is true.
It's like
this is true.
You text to find out. We actually had a caller, so to speak, yesterday. An older woman and her daughter, an adult daughter, knocked on our door and said, "We lived here 25 years ago.
Oh wow!
And could we walk around and see the backyard? We know because of COVID, we're not going to come in or anything, but could we just walk around in the back?" And we were like, "Sure.
Oh, okay.
You can walk around." At first I thought they were real jealous of my son's bouncy house, but
oh, nice.
No. And then today there was a woman, an older person, pulled up in their SUV staring at our house. Just staring. And I'm like, is that the same old woman from yesterday? And then I realized that she sat there for a long time, staring directly at our house. And then we realized she's crying. And she was just like sitting there very sentimentally, wiping tears away. And if I was a more friendly person, I might have gone out and been like, "Hi, I'm the young woman with my baby raising my family here. Like, how are you? Your house is in good hands." But I'm not friendly, and I didn't do that.
No. See, we had the opposite. So apparently a package came to where we used to live last week. And since Susan was still down there, on the same street, she stopped by to pick it up, and she knocked on the door and was like, "Hey, we were former tenants here. Heard through the landlord you have a package for us." And the guy who had answered the door was like, "Yeah, let me check with my wife." And he like goes deeper into the house. All of a sudden, from like around the door, the wife like pops out, hands her the package, and shuts the door. And it's like, "Okay, I guess thanks for the package." A little weird.
Get out.
Yeah, exactly. It was bizarre. We only lived here for 3 years. Sorry, it's your house now. Yikes. Anyway, with all this wonderful talk of callers and houses and where things are, we are going to get into The Awakening by Kate Chopin.
I thought you were going to tell us where you are in your house and why we had such a short episode and all of that. So we can skip that part. No.
We have a short. All right, good point. We have a shorter episode this week because we were in the midst of a move. We've pretty much finished it. Well, starting the finishing, I guess you could say. So I did not read my chapters last week. So fun thing in your feed tomorrow will be a length and a half. It'll be a bonusly long episode, and you'll get to hear me read 2 sections. So I guess that's good for the people that like to hear me read, and if you don't, then I guess maybe you put me on 1.5 speed and get through it as quickly as you can.
Excellent. All right. Now we can talk about today's episode.
Oh, yes. Now we can talk about it. And we're moving here as well. So which we'll get to, but we're going to change some locations in this week's episode. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Well, not fun, but it's interesting anyway.
It's fun in a really sad way. Fun in
it
like
could be.
Glad that's not me kind of way.
For multiple reasons, one of which I will get into very quickly. So here we're going to start off in chapter 13, and kind of where we left off. We left off in 12. It's Sunday. Everybody's getting in the boat with Mr. Baudelaire. He's going to roam over to the Candida
Shinrei.
To go to Mass. Shinrei to go to Mass. So we're actually here now, and so we're going through Mass. And the first thing, it's hot because it's Louisiana, and it's the summer, and the air in this church is stifling. And Edna is like, you know what? I got to get out of here. It's probably also a factor of the fact that she is not Catholic by birth. She was not raised Catholic, so I think a Catholic service probably is not the most interesting thing for her. It's long, it's very formal, a lot of up and down. The oppression. Yeah, adding to the oppression. And so she gets out of there.
With Robert.
Well, Robert follows her, yes. And they go and they find a house to take a nap.
Madame Antoine's. Basically.
Madame Antoine's.
Yeah, she didn't go to Mass.
She is an Acadian.
Did you look it up?
Do you know what an Acadian is?
I don't.
I did look it up. You don't look it up.
Because I depend on you to look it up.
Oh, okay. So I guess this is the difference. Is the difference between the intellectually curious and the not, I suppose.
I take offense to that. I just know that you're going to look it up, and if I look it up, then we ruin our rhythm. We've got a rhythm.
Well, I didn't look it up fully, so there's more to look up. But anyway, the Acadians are French Canadians who were deported to Louisiana.
Deported?
I didn't get into the reason for the deportation, but apparently they are French-speaking Canadians who, I assume forcibly, deported is not by choice, right?
Right, it's not immigrated.
Is by force. They were deported down to Louisiana. And so Madame Antoine... Antoine?
Is Louisiana like our Australia? It's like if nobody wants you, you deport all the deplorables, the deportables to Louisiana.
The deportables, all the French speakers, they get to go down there.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, as we talked earlier, action happening in this book doesn't really. It's more theme by chapter because really this chapter can be summed up as lady goes to church, gets hot, goes and takes a nap.
It's exactly what happens.
Right? That is literally the extent of the quote-unquote action.
But what I pulled out, and I'm wondering if you pulled out the same thing, the main function of this chapter for me is to show Robert and Edna's familiarity with each other and their faithfulness to each other, or devotion, maybe.
The burgeoning chemistry.
Yeah. I like on page, well, I've got the physical copy, but when they're chatting, there's just one sentence where he familiarly adjusted a ruffle upon her shoulder, which is like kind of a nothing gesture, but it would also be super weird if some other woman sort of adjusting my husband's clothes, or if a man adjusted Susan's clothes or something.
Right.
So
we can contrast this with, he's not really a character, he's sort of mentioned, but Madame Antoine's son, Tony, who he hangs around a little bit, chats with Robert a little bit, but then gets out of Dodge because, as the book says, he won't face any woman but his mother. So this guy is completely gun shy around any sort of woman.
We need some Tony fan fiction. Like, what's his deal? Why is he so nervous?
He's very sheltered. Well, they're all very sheltered. They mentioned that Madame Antoine has only left the island twice in her life. And I think once was just to go up to New Orleans or something. So she hasn't gone very far. She sort of is the, I don't know, caretaker or the mama bear of this little island community. So other kind of things that I kind of pulled out of this. When Edna gets there, just the description of how she starts removing like the outer layers of her clothing. Like how much clothes these people wore back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I mean, that's adding, like I can't imagine just being in Louisiana in t-shirt and shorts.
Yeah.
And she's just got layers upon layers. It's no wonder these Southern women were always getting the vapors and passing out. And you add a corset on there, I'm sure, and you can't breathe. And
well, I was looking at like pictures for the the social medias and the Instagram, and people walking on the beach in the 1800s, like late 1800s, 1899, which is I think when
this was, yeah.
So just dressed so fully, as you were saying, and they've got an umbrella to keep the sun off of them, but there's like the high collar and the all the way down. They probably have like wool stockings on. Although I hear wool is like heat and cool regulating, but it's still hot.
It's supposed to breathe.
Yeah. So she needs to take it.
It is very hot.
And can you imagine Madame Antoine? You called her the Mama Bear. Like you just show up and you're like, "Can I take a nap in your house? I'm super hot. I'm just gonna get undressed and take a nap like in your bed." Right? That's where you put guests.
Exactly.
She's like, "Cool, yeah, I'll make you something to eat. Go have a good sleep."
Beneath the mosquito bar.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is some kind of metallic contraption with mosquito net attached to it.
Yeah, and the bar probably holds the net down. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because have you ever used a mosquito net?
Just over the baby this summer. And a freaking mosquito got in and I was mad.
Still got in.
Forget
They're not fun to use, so unless you have some kind of... So it's... If it does kind of spread the net out for you, it's kind of ingenious because they are not fun.
Are they like
a mosquito net in of itself is not fun to try to put on a bed.
Do they cling like a shower curtain? You ever like a shower curtain cling to you?
Yeah.
It's one of the worst feelings. I hate that. Is that what a mosquito net is like? Is it like... I
mean, it's like getting into a net and...
It's like getting into
sort of
right.
Yeah. It's all,
Thank
and
you
then my experiences,
obviously,
were my experiences were also in the desert, so they're very dusty. So anytime you move them, like you're showered with dust as well, and you're just like, oh, this is miserable. And then you add the heat, and you're just like, oh, not fun.
That's gross.
Not fun at all. I also liked where Edna was sort of in that half drowsy state, where she's sort of aware of things that are happening in the house. She's not fully awake, not fully asleep.
She's listening to the voices and the chickens and just listening to all those ambient sounds. Right.
And sort of imperceptibly taking them in. I had a visceral reaction to that passage because one of my first things that I did when I was in the Army, I was stationed in Korea, and we had gone out to gunnery, where you go out to the field for like a month, and we were sleeping in tents on these concrete pads, and it's like February, March in Korea, so it's like freezing. And it was one of our last days there, so we didn't have anything to do. We were just kind of wrapping up and getting ready to leave. And I remember waking up, or not quite waking up. I was laying on the cot in my sleeping bag, kind of half asleep, and I just had this sound just in my brain, just over and over and over. And one of the guys in the tent had some speakers with him, and he was playing Jay-Z's Big Pimpin' just over and over. And I don't know if you know the tune, but it's got this very haunting, like, and this high whistle, and that sound just kind of bore into my brain, my half asleep brain, and I swear I was going mad. Like I thought that song lasted for like 10 hours, like, and I woke up, I was crazy. So to this day, if I hear that sound, like it kind of tenses my body, and I kind of freak out a little bit.
I had a very nostalgic response. I too had a visceral response, but it made me think about being a kid, and as the youngest, I had to go to bed first, but I'm not tired. And so I'm listening to the sounds of the house, and like you could just hear like the rumble of dad's voice, and then the higher pitched sound of mom's voice, and the moving around and listening to footsteps. And eventually I remember getting really good at knowing whose footsteps sounded like what, or where they were in the house by how they sounded, and just listening to everything that was going on. But the worst was, like, if the three of you would stay up and watch a movie or something, and I could just, it's like, it's inappropriate for you. You have to go to bed. But everybody else got to stay up, or like Christmas, waiting for, everything that was going to happen. And everybody else is still up, just listening to the chatter. That's what it made me think.
Okay.
More nostalgic, less craze-inducing, psychosis-inducing.
Right. I mean, to me, it's a very not restful state.
No. Mm-mm.
So it's just indicative of, like, you want to sleep, you want to be asleep, but you're not, and you're kind of half perceiving what's going on, and you're tired. So, the agitation I'm sure Edna is feeling at this point.
In many ways, like, not just in her
Right.
sleep, but in her life.
I think it's a picture of what's going on internally with her mind, her thought process during this awakening period that she's going through.
Yeah, she's not quite awake yet.
Oh,
she's
wow.
in between. Look at how we got there.
We kind of hit on something here.
Yeah. That's actually really awesome.
We also have a nice flirtatious period with Robert where they're kind of hanging out on the boat and chatting, and, he's saying, oh, you were asleep for 100 years, and I've just sort of been standing here guarding you. And, so they're just kind of being cutesy flirty at this point. And because she doesn't want to go home. She would rather just hang out.
Yeah.
Because Robert says, hey, we got to go. Beaudelet's going to take the boat back. She's like, let him go. It's fine. We'll just stay here. So she's not in any hurry to get home.
I love that he says he's been there, 100 years, just guarding her slumber. But also, Madame Antoine has made a broiled fowl, and it's probably, he said, I couldn't keep it from drying up, so it's probably not very good. But he also spent his time foraging on the island for food for her, for when she got up.
Right.
Which is kind of, I think it's kind of weird, because we don't really forage that often unless you're one of the...
forage for food anymore.
No. But he did. He got...
I guess I could say I went down to Sheetz and picked you up some hot dogs or something.
Yeah.
The modern equivalent.
Then he was gratified to discover her appetite. So, likes to watch her eat. And watched her with relish with the food that he had procured for her. So he's feeling very...
kind of proud of himself.
Yeah.
He's proud of himself.
And he's caring for her, and he feels really good about that. They're totally falling in love.
Definitely. Yeah, there's nothing else we can really take from this at this point.
They're just friends.
Right.
I foraged for you for food, and I've been sitting in one spot for what felt like...
the sun's going to go down. We need to get home. Nah, let it go down. We can borrow Tony's boat. It's fine.
Yep. And that's it. That's what happens in 13.
That's what happens. And so now we're going to contrast that with she gets home in 14. She gets home to old Leonce and the boys.
And the first thing is, Etienne has been naughty. So you have this wonderful day on the island with your, secret crush, and you get home and it's like, your son's been bad. Ugh.
And well, he's been bad because he won't go to sleep. He
Yeah.
won't go to bed, which is what kids do. They don't go to bed sometimes.
But she's all sweet to him, which is not always her way.
Right. Now, Leonce, he was worried because she'd been gone all day, and he kind of wanted to go after her, but instead he's like,
well,
I'm going to go over to Klein's instead. There's a guy I need to talk to.
Well, Madame Ratignolle,
right.
calms
She
him.
tells him, right. She says, don't worry about it. So he's like, all right, fine, I'm going to go over to Klein's. And I love how Madame Ratignolle explains it to Edna. He says, yeah, there was a guy over at Klein's, and he wanted to talk about securities, exchanges, stocks, bonds, or something. Business, something.
Sounds real boring. I told him just to go so he'd stop talking about it.
Exactly. Just go.
And I think the other big thing for me in this one is Robert remarking she remarks that they've been in the entire day they have spent together since early in the morning when she summoned him, if we remember,
right,
to go to the island in the first place. And they've been together all morning, and then he walks away alone toward the Gulf, I'm sure, to think about her and what in the world is happening between them
Right. And as he goes away, she's wishing that he wasn't, that he
Right.
was staying.
And
So she's kind of crossing the Rubicon here. Like, there's no going back at this point.
Yeah. And this summer is like every other summer. Like, Robert is the same kind of person. He's doing what he does, as we mentioned in other episodes. And this summer, it seems to be progressing as all others, but it says she is the one who's different.
Right.
But she's not fully aware of exactly what that means or what it will mean yet. But herself at this point was in some way different from the other self, I guess, of other summers. And this new condition is coloring and changing her environment in ways that she can't even yet suspect.
Right. And we get a nice contrast here with how Edna's feeling and what she's going through with Madame Ratignolle, who we've already established as the picture of perfect womanlyhood. So, Leonce wanted to go after Ratignolle, calms him down. And he's like, all right, well, fine. If I'm not going to go after her, I'm going to go hang out at Klein's. I'm not going to stay with these dumb kids. So Madame Ratignolle stays with Edna's children until Edna shows back up. And she says, she herself, I love it, was suffering from heat and oppression, which to me, I think heat and oppression should be like the subtitle of this book. But then, she says, look, I'd love to stay, Edna, but I really can't, because Monsieur Ratignolle, he's alone, and he doesn't like to be left alone. Mm-hmm. So I got to get back to him. So just contrasting the two couples, where Edna and Leonce they don't even bother being in the same space as each other for a few minutes, and the Ratignolles, which they can't be apart. Like, I got to get back.
Yeah.
So definitely, Edna's seeing a different side of things, and she feels definitely different.
Yeah, and she and Robert, whatever,
Robert,
end up spending, the whole day together. She doesn't like being away from him, though.
And she doesn't mind. It's not a bother to be with him, and she wants more time with him.
Right. And so he's running around her brain all night, and she's humming at the end of the chapter. She's thinking of the song that he was singing in the boat, which, pardon my French, it's Si tu savais, I think.
Si tu savais.
It translates to if you knew. And so he's singing if you knew over and over this song. And his voice, the tune, the notes, everything is just haunting her memory of the day.
And this song is going to come back. We're gonna not the last we're going to see. Si tu savais.
If you knew. It's like the tension is just like, for me, and the fact that they don't really know. They know, but they don't know, like, they like being together, but, they can't quite. It's like when you meet somebody that you want to be with, like, being drawn. I remember meeting Ben for the first time and, like, shaking his hand. I have that memory so clearly in my head. I know exactly what I was wearing and what he was wearing and what I thought and where we were. Because also he was the new manager at the restaurant I was working at the time when I was in graduate school. And I remember thinking, oh, I didn't realize he'd be so young and handsome.
Fraternization is strictly prohibited at the workplace.
It was, technically. But then being drawn to someone and you don't even know that you're drawn to them. You're like, oh, that guy's cool. It's fun to talk to. Whatever.
Did he speak more in those days?
Ben talks a lot.
I've gotten like 3 words out of him.
You don't talk that much either.
He's not drawn to me, apparently.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
You show up at people's houses and go to sleep on the couch. Like, that's what you do.
I am Edna Pontillier, and you guys are just my Mrs. Antoine. So
you do hate the heat and oppression.
I do hate heat and oppression. Fortunately, I'm in a better part of the country for less heat and less oppression.
Yeah.
All right, so that takes us up to chapter
15.
And we're a little bit of a time jump now. So the last couple chapters have all been consecutive in time, and now we're some indeterminate time forward. And Edna shows up to dinner a little late. She's like, I roll in when I roll in. So just that alone is something very interesting to me, because you're on this small summer community on this island. And, it's communal dinners by the Lebruns. And obviously, Leonce and the boys have gone off to dinner, and Edna's just like, I'll get there when I get there. They don't even make any kind of pretense of arriving at the same time or as a family or even on time. In Edna's case, she just gets there when she gets there.
Well, the kids are always with their nurse.
This is true.
It's like you kiss the children in the morning, the nurse brings them, smooch them, all right, take them, bring them to me at nap, bring them to me at dinner, and when they go to bed. Other than that, I don't want to see them.
I don't want to see them. Exactly. So now we get some big news. This is sort of the bombshell chapter. Robert is going to Mexico.
He's doing it. He's going.
He is.
All these years. Said he's going to do it. He's really going. Going to find his fortune in Mexico.
Hopefully, anyway. We shall see.
It's a gut punch, though, to Edna.
Because he didn't say anything to her.
They were together all day.
All morning.
All morning.
Yep.
All day.
All morning. All day. All day, all morning, until dinner. And so she finally gets around to asking him, like, when are you going? And he goes, oh, yeah, tonight at like 10.
I love the scene. Everyone is upset. And, we know Edna doesn't fit in with the Creole community. They're very jovial and one big family, and they're all yelling at the same time. And like,
they're the Olive Garden.
This very evening? Did you ever? What possesses it? And all these sounds and
everybody's going.
And it's very chaotic around her. And I just picture her like, if it were a movie, the sound would kind of go quiet, but you could still see everyone like gesturing and yelling. And she kind of goes into tunnel vision and just staring at Robert like, tonight? And you didn't tell me?
You didn't tell me. And he's getting upset. He's like, look, I've been saying for years I'm going. Why are you all mad at me? And you're like, yeah, okay, buddy.
It does make sense. He explains it. Why and how. Because Monsieur Farival is also incensed over the fact that he's leaving. It doesn't make any sense.
Right, and Robert's worked it all out. He's like, well, look, I got to be there on such and such day, and I got to catch the steamer from New Orleans on such and such day, and in order to get there, I got to get up to New Orleans before then, and you know what? Farival's going tonight, so I gotta go with him.
Yeah, not Farival, Baudelaire.
Oh, Baudelaire's going.
Yeah.
Farival helping made the decision, but he's got to get on the boat with Baudelaire and get going.
And it totally makes logical sense. If you're going to go, you should go now.
Because how far from Grande Isle is New Orleans? Do you know?
50 miles?
Ooh, not quite.
Oh,
double it.
100? Really?
It's a good 100 plus, and that's on our good highway systems and paved roads. Oh. Those days, no paved roads. Early 1900s, there were a few, if any, paved roads in America.
It's true. The highway system really didn't come about until like the 40s.
General Eisenhower. It was his when he was president.
I know that because Dad was born in 45, and I remember one day thinking, like, Dad was born before we really even had highways. That's
correct. And do you know why we have the highway system? Why it's called the Eisenhower Highway System?
No.
It's educational in this podcast. It's because in order to test like logistical systems, when he was a lieutenant colonel in the Army in like the late 19 teens, 1920s, I'm not sure exactly when, Eisenhower was put in charge of a convoy to go some distance east to west in America. And obviously in the pre-highway days, he's taken like all the little state routes, through it. And he decided, this is horrendous. This is terrible. We need something better. So when he was president, he said, we need a highway system of straight roads that'll get you long distances quickly and efficiently. And that is why. And did you also further know that 1 mile out of every 5 on the Eisenhower highway system are straight? So airplanes can use it for emergency landings.
That I did know, because Ben, one of the things he loves to talk about are airplanes.
Oh, very good.
And he has all kinds of knowledge about airplanes and that exact thing that you just
told me. That tidbit of knowledge. Yeah. Exactly. So I can only imagine how long it takes Robert to go 100+ miles from Grande Isle. I mean, that's straight on our roads. It's probably more like 120 or so.
It's probably like
on these
50
dirt
miles.
roads.
Is it 50 miles from the island to the mainland? Where did I get 50? I got 50 was a real number. Like Grande Isle just to Louisiana in general.
Maybe it's the mainland of Louisiana. And then to get up to New Orleans is another 50 or so.
Because that's a long way by boat anyway. And
it is. Definitely is.
I don't know what kind of boat Baudelaire has. I picture him paddling. But maybe it has a motor.
Well, it carried at least... I mean, I don't think they had motorboats back then. I think it is paddling. I think... Or it's sail. No, it's sail.
Oh,
remember?
okay.
When they went up to Mass, it's sail. Because Farival was complaining about how the sail was trimmed. And thinking he could do better. But it seats at least 6, 8, 10 people. I mean, it's a sizable little thing. It's not like a canoe.
Monsieur Farival is one of my newly favorite characters because he's such a jerk. He's salty and sassy about Baudelaire in the boat, but also in this chapter, Victor's trying to talk and he's being a jerk. Victor is Robert's brother. Monsieur Farival thought that Victor should have been taken out into mid-ocean in his earliest youth and drowned. What?
What a nice guy.
But Victor thought there would be more logic in thus disposing of old people. So they both want to drown each other in mid-ocean. And his own mother, Victor's mother, says, I wish Victor would lose the power of speech sometimes.
Nothing but love going on here.
No.
And you got to imagine, I think this community, these folks, they come every summer to the Lebruns.
Mm-hmm.
And so they probably all know each other back in New Orleans as well. So I'm sure Farival has known Victor since he was a kid, very young.
Since when he contemplated drowning him in the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. I think we find later he's 19. One of the chapters we find Victor's 19, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Farival's probably known him since he was born, as old as he is.
Yeah, and they're all sitting around this table, and so they're all and they're all basically family, and they're all upset that one of them, Robert, is leaving, and it's sudden, and nobody has time to process anything, especially Edna.
Right, in this big sort of family atmosphere, I can see how it'd be taken as offense. Like, you can't leave. Like, this is the group. Like,
yeah.
The group doesn't break up. You're not allowed to leave.
Summer's not over, even.
Exactly.
So we go through the people that we see, right? We see the lovers. We see the lady in black. We see Mr. Farival. So the lovers are profiting from the commotion, and they're canoodling somewhere. The lady in black wants new prayer beads from Mexico that she used to have. Can you please find them?
No. The lady in black. No. The lady in black, she got some prayer beads from Mexico. And apparently there's a special indulgence on these prayer beads. And she was asking the father there hey, how do these work? Do these only work in Mexico that I can use this indulgence? Or can I use it anywhere?
What's an indulgence?
I
don't know.
An indulgence. An indulgence is like a get out of jail free card. It's like a free sin pass.
Oh, she's looking for a free sin pass on her beads?
Yes, she wants to use this indulgence on her beads. She's like, can I only use this in Mexico or can I use it here? And I'm pre-forgiven for whatever sin I'm going to go do. So I don't know you can only imagine what indulgence is attached to these beads.
Is it specific?
Probably something salacious. It has to be. But apparently when she asked the local pastor, local father, does this only work in Mexico or is it good here too? His answer did not satisfy. So she wants Robert, hey, when you're down there, can you go ask about this indulgence and if I can use it here?
That's awesome. That's
yes.
Hilarious. I had no idea.
It very much reminds me of so Saudi Arabia and Bahrain are connected by a causeway. And on the weekends, all the Saudis drive over to Bahrain to party and hang out and do whatever. And they sort of, debauch themselves a bit because the saying is that God can't see over the bridge. So once you're in Bahrain, man, you can do whatever you want. And then when you come back to Saudi, you got to be good again.
Why do they allow like drinking in nightclubs or something in Bahrain versus Saudi?
I think you would just do it open. I mean, yes, you can purchase alcohol more easily in Bahrain. In Saudi, it's more locked down, like completely illegal.
God can't see over the bridge.
Can't see over the bridge. So yeah. So can I use this indulgence in the States, or is it only a Mexican indulgence? I gotta know.
Because then I gotta plan a trip.
I know. I can only imagine what the Lady Black is planning on doing, right? It's kind of left to your imagination, fortunately. But we also get a little revelation here that Robert, he admits to Edna, hey, when you're up in New Orleans, I'd like to come see you this winter. But then he kind of says, you know what, forget I said it. So he kind of is acknowledging that he has some like more serious feelings towards her, and he's not just summer flinging it like he does with all the other ladies on the island. And so he's like, you know what, I gotta go. So before he even finishes the thought of coming to see her, he stops himself and backs away.
Yeah, and he said, I was planning on doing this, and because she was planning on seeing him in the winter too, and he's like,
told him,
right, and he's like, perhaps that's the, and I don't know, I was thinking perhaps that's the reason I'm leaving, and to keep us apart because we shouldn't be doing this or something. I don't know what he was going to say, but that's what I inserted for myself, because that's when he suddenly stands up and gets very formal and like sticks his hand out to shake hands with her.
Goodbye, Mrs. Pontellier. Write to me, will you, Robert? Yes, thank you, I will.
Thank you, goodbye. It's so...
And then he's out.
Yeah. It's so...
I think that's the moment where they both realize they have feelings, and it's dangerous in their situations to have such.
At least Robert realizes it, and he's removing himself from the situation completely. It could be what he was thinking about after he realized, I stayed put on an island, I foraged for food for you, while you slept I watched over you, we spent the whole day together, and then he walks off by himself down to the Gulf, like, thinking. And I'm imagining that's when he's decided, like, I should really go this time, this isn't going anywhere. Adele warned me to be careful. Mrs. Pontellier doesn't know if you're serious. And he's like, why shouldn't she take me seriously? And that's a problem.
Right. And I think she's realizing it too, because at the end of the chapter it says, as he leaves, she bit her handkerchief convulsively, striving to hold back and to hide, even from herself, as she would have hidden from another, the emotion which was troubling, tearing her.
And it's the first time she recognizes, oh, this is like those other three infatuations in some way.
Right.
And it's wholly different from the way she feels about and for her husband.
Yes,
and
exactly.
And we get that in the next chapter, actually.
Which, in the next chapter, now not only do we have a time jump, but... Oh, no, we don't yet. Not yet. So now, it's the next morning. Oh, no, it's one morning, so it's a few days later. It's sometime later. We got Mademoiselle Rice, and she asks, well, do you miss your friend?
She misses him a lot.
She does. So, we're a few days later, we're creeping towards the end of summer. So now we got that, the time here in Grand Isle is drawing to a close.
They're making plans for going home. Yeah. Right.
So she's always swimming now. She's learned how to swim this summer, and that's what she's doing. It's her escape at this point. It's her only pleasurable activity that she finds at the island. And
she's making other people talk about him.
Right. I mean, she's going up and hanging out with Madame Lebrun just to, talk about Robert.
Yeah.
And she finds out that Madame Lebrun has gotten a letter from Robert, which in good fashion, just like we talked in Northanger Abbey, hey, a letter for one is a letter for all. Here, you read the letter now.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So she reads it and examines, everything. She is looking at his handwriting on the envelope. She's looking at the postmark. She's looking how it's sealed. And every little thing she can glean from this letter.
She probably smelled it.
She is. Yeah, exactly. It's weirdo. But she's upset because she's not really mentioned. She's only kind of obliquely mentioned at the end when Robert tells his mom, oh, hey, I was reading that book to Mrs. P. If she wants to finish it, it's in my room. You can grab it. So she's a little disappointed with that.
She's also she's hanging out with his mom and she's looking at his baby pictures and stuff. She's trying to absorb absolutely everything she can about him, get some kind of glimpse. She's upset because there isn't a recent picture of him because his mom says, well, once he had to pay for photographs on his own, he stopped getting them taken.
It doesn't want to have been done. Well, he's very conscientious with his money, so that's good. He's smart about that.
Yeah. So she's really seeking
Everyone is really feeling for Edna here, to the extent that even Mr. Pontellier, even Leonce is like, hey, how are you doing with Robert being gone?
Weird.
You know, by the way, I ran into him up in New Orleans. And she's like, wait, what? You did? What was he doing?
Tell me
what was
everything.
he wearing? How was he looking?
Did he
was he
talk about
happy?
me?
Was he sad? Yeah, exactly. Which, to your spouse, that's a little bizarre thing, but...
It didn't strike her in the least grotesque that she should be making of Robert the object of conversation and leading her husband to speak of him.
She didn't care.
No?
She's beyond. This is, you know... She got nothing left to give here.
I love it. It says, a sentiment which she entertained for Robert in no way resembled that which she felt for her husband, or had ever felt, or ever expected to feel. I don't love you now, I never have, and I never will.
I literally never.
I don't even like you. This awakening isn't just... Like, at this point in the book, you could think, oh, this awakening is she likes this other guy, and she's realizing she doesn't really like her husband too much. But that's not it, because it says all her life she's been this person who keeps all of her emotions inside and kind of doesn't speak out, doesn't speak up, she won't even read a book where people can see her. God forbid they like see her emote at all. All of her feelings belonged to herself. Her struggles belonged to her, and she doesn't share them. And then it gets into this conversation about that she had with Adele, Madame Ratignolle, one day, that she would never sacrifice herself for anyone or for her children, and they actually got into like a fight about it.
Yes,
and
I thought this was a real key line
huge
in here in this passage, because she says, you know, I would never sacrifice myself for her children or for anyone, and they get into an argument, and then she says, well, look, I would give up the unessential. I'd give up money. I would give my life. But I wouldn't give myself. And I thought that was just like, oof.
Gives me chills. Literally, just now. And Ratignolle doesn't understand. She's like, you would give your life? What more could... You don't have any more to give. And Edna's like, yes. Yes, you do. Oh, yes, you could. She laughs. And I think she's laughing because... I don't think she's laughing at Adele. She's laughing at, like... There's
her situation.
So much more to you than just the fact that you are alive.
Right.
I don't know if this hits as hard for you because you're a dad or just because you're you. Also, I have to put a pin in something I would like to say to you. Hold on.
Okay.
As a mom, this hits me hard because after having a baby and feeding that baby, and it totally depends on you, and then there's a point where your baby is so dependent on you that it doesn't want anyone else. So even if people want to help you, they can't because the baby just screams. And you give up, at least for me, it was like, well, I am not reading, I'm not hanging out with my friends, I'm not dancing, I'm not listening to music, and you don't even realize you've lost yourself.
Right.
At all. Until, for me, slow down, come back, and one day, you know, you put on a really good song, and you're like, oh, I haven't felt this way in a while. Oh, this is cool. Or you hang out with a friend, and you're like, oh, holy shit, this is what it's like to be a person. So that hits me really hard.
I think societally, this is, you know, the privilege of being a man. You know, the unspoken male privilege, if you will. Like, I did not have to give up myself for my children. You know, like I sacrifice and I do things for them, but I never had to get to that level, whereas I know Susan definitely has. Like, past times, like I've been a dad for 10 years now, and like I've never given up a hobby, I've never given up my free time, I've never given up, you know, what I do and my pursuits and my interests, whereas I know my wife definitely has, because she's remarked, like, I don't even know what I would do with free time. I don't even know. So she kind of has lost her interests and her hobbies. And, you know, when we pick movies, or, you know, I'm the one who's always showing her interesting things that I find or that I want her to look at, or, you know, this is this cool thing that I'm interested in. she just doesn't have anything to reciprocate back.
She's wholly devoted herself not only just to the kids, but also to their schooling, because you guys homeschool. So that's like a whole new level.
Right.
Like Edna's got a nurse. Edna's got someone who's following her kids around, making sure that they're
she doesn't have to give up herself.
Yeah.
Right. So I was seeing this in here. She's like, I'm not going to give up myself. I mean, in a way, she doesn't even have to make that choice.
Right.
Because she simply doesn't have to. If she wants to go up to the atelier, as we see later, and paint all day, she can do that. The house staff will take care of the kids. They're fine.
And Adele too. Adele's got Siti, her, a servant. We'll see later on in one of the other chapters. So they've got nurses to help take care of their kids.
Right.
And now parents across the U.S. are feeling this, because even if you aren't homeschooling your kids are schooling at home.
They're probably home a lot.
Yeah. And there's no one. There are a few daycares, and they're at lower capacity, even if you do have a daycare that you could use.
Well, and as we've seen through the pandemic, generally women are the ones that have to give up. If both parents are working, generally the woman is the one giving up the career to stay home with the kids, because the man goes back to work. So and just societally, we're still structured similarly. We haven't changed.
Yeah.
We've changed somewhat from the 1800s, but not drastically.
And men don't even have the often. Not everywhere, because it's changing slowly, but you don't even have the option if you wanted to stay home, and have paternity leave or something with a new baby.
Right.
Some women don't either. And if you do, it's often unpaid unless you've got a sweet gig somewhere. But it's not even structured in where men are making choices not to be home and be the number one provider. It's if I want to have a job, I can't
make the choice.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And the thing I wanted to say to you that I put a pin in, last discussion, you were talking about the difference of women being very nurturing and men being not so much, at least in the aggregate.
Right.
And you considered yourself, you said yourself, you're like, well, I'm not that nurturing, because the kids would eat McDonald's and watch TV or whatever. And I've actually been thinking about this, and I disagree with you. I think you're extremely nurturing, because I've watched you sit and read to your kids and to my kid and hug them and take care of them and do nurturing things. Now, maybe you let them eat,
I don't
less
know if I can
nutritious
do it all day.
things. But
again, but but to tie that with what we were just talking about, on the times when I've had them alone for a day or two, I'm not going to sacrifice myself. Hey kids, put a movie on. I'm going to go do something. I'm going to go play a video game or read a book or work on a hobby, or I'm going to go work out, or I'm not going to sacrifice myself even on a 2 or 3 day span. I'm still going to do the things that make me.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, I think that's the right thing to do, because if you do sacrifice yourself, you end up being fully fatigued in every way and not realizing who you are anymore.
Right. I think it's a healthier balance.
I do too.
And on that note, you're going to nurture while you're doing a podcast here in a second.
Look at how much nurturing is in
this
room.
A child behind you. It's very nurturing.
Our mother's here. My baby's here.
3 generations of nurturing.
Yeah. Mom looks like a rock star because her transitional
I was gonna say,
lenses
Elton John's
haven't
behind
shifted.
You or something. you got, goodbye, yellow brick road. All right.
Kyle said you look like Elton John because your transitions didn't.
Piano. He doesn't. Does he play guitar? He probably knows how to play guitar. The piano's what he's known for. All right. Please don't do that.
No one can see you, Mom.
Be glad that this is not a video podcast. All right, so where were we? Okay, so the other two kind of things I had from the other notes, quick notes on this chapter 16, we have, turns out Robert and Victor, there's some bad blood over Mariquita.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out, apparently Robert was messing around with her, and then Victor got jealous because he thought she was his girl, and then Robert apparently, or Robert, see, I'm doing it now. Robert apparently thrashed him pretty good at one point. And the other kind of the chapter ends with Edna kind of souring on Madame Rice. She's kind of like, she's kind of a jerk. I don't think I like her after all.
Yeah, she's sassier or saltier than we originally thought.
Right. Just one sort of non-story note, but language thing I thought was kind of neat was at one point, when Edna's, I think, talking to Madame Rice, and she sort of offends her. She says, "I beg your pardon," which literally would be, "I am begging for your pardon because I offended you." But in modern usage, we use it like, "I beg your pardon." Like, I'm the one that's offended here. I'm not begging. It's really, we should be saying, you should pardon. I don't know. How should we even say it? Like, you should be asking me for my pardon, but the literal definition of "I beg your pardon" would be like, I offended you. But we use it as, "I'm offended. I beg your pardon."
It's like a passive-aggressive way of being aggressive?
I guess. I don't know. So I just found it interesting because when I read it silently to myself, and I read the line, "I beg your pardon," I read it in an offended tone. "I beg your pardon," like Edna was getting kind of uppity. But then as you continue the paragraph, you're like, oh no, Edna is sincerely saying, "Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry I offended you." So it's kind of interesting little change of language over the years. All right, so that takes us into 17.
Mm-hmm.
So now we do the jump. Now the summer's over, we've finished, and we are in Nolans. And we are on Esplanade Street,
the home
of
Edna
home
and
of the
Leon's.
Pontelliers. So they are like right downtown. So they're only a couple blocks from the Superdome, or where the Superdome eventually will be, and they're just outside the French Quarter. So they are right downtown in the heart of New Orleans. It's a very nice house, very well outfitted. Mr. Pontellier he's proud as a peacock here, going around every little thing. He picked out that painting and that sconce and that lace over there. Like, he loves every little thing that he's put into this house. And we find that Edna has her reception day on Tuesdays. So she holds court on Tuesdays and receives visitors. That's her day. So I was just wondering, like, do you have to have like a scheduling book and know, like, okay, these people are Mondays, these people are Tuesdays, these people are Wednesdays, these people are Thursdays. And so if you're a Tuesday, do you never see the other Tuesdays? Like, because you...
Would that be...
do you like, hey, I gotta steal out for a minute and go see Mrs. So-and-so because she's also a Tuesday?
Would that be offensive if it's like, well, I'm a Tuesday. How could you also pick Tuesday?
Maybe it would be. But she, at the height of arrogance, she goes out on her Tuesday. She's like, man, it's Tuesday, whatever, I'm going out. And Mr. P knows this because he comes home and she's in like her house dress or whatever. She's not in her receiving dress. So you have clothes for each specific thing. You got house clothes, you got going out clothes, you got I'm sitting in receiving clothes. Well, he's mad because he says, hey, look, it's your job to keep up these connections with these wives of these dudes I do business with. Did Mrs. So-and-so come by? Did so-and-so come by? She's like, man, I don't know. Hey, go get the Joe, get the cards, please. And he brings it, and she's like, let Mr. Pontellier see him. I don't care. And he starts going through the ladies' cards and saying, oh, did you see this lady? You need to talk to her. He's really rich. I need him. And, oh, good thing you missed this one. I don't talk to that lady, So he's more concerned with her duties than she is.
Well, they can't afford to snub Mrs. Belthrop.
No, of course not.
The Belthrops could buy and sell them 10 times over.
Buy and sell us 10 times over. Which, just a delightful. We had a Chinese exchange student my freshman year, and he got very upset at one of my classmates, and he used that line, I can buy and sell you 10 times over. And we're like, okay, dude, chill out. we're good. Whatever, man. He was a little unstable, but anyway, he saw snow for the first time in Pennsylvania. That was fun. Anyway.
I think you've spoken of this individual before. I remember the snow story.
I don't know that I've talked much about my first freshman year. Much.
Oh, was that the Valley Forge one? That
was my Valley Forge year. I kind of keep that one. Push that away. Forget that happened a lot of times. It was an interesting year. Set me up well for later, but wow, that was bizarre. So anyway, the dinner's kind of bad. Like, the fish is burned, The food's just not good. Mr. P's upset. He's like, you know what? I'm just gonna eat at the club.
He just
I'm out of here.
leaves. Yeah, leaves his wife to eat the crappy food.
Now, in his defense, if I'm not a rich guy and I don't employ people, but if I did, and like the cook's job was to cook, and they burnt the fish, like I'd be pretty upset too, you know. But this is the little equivalent of be like, this sucks. I'm going out to McDonald's to grab something because this dinner was just not good.
Well, I think he's also like the cooks are only human. They need looking after, like any class of persons you employ. And I think, is he implying like Edna should be looking over the house? She should be looking after
that's
the
her
cooks
job.
And
that's
making sure it
her
runs.
job. Right, she runs the house. It's not this chapter. It's not the next. We will not hit. No, we will hit it because we go through 19. But in 19, she is supposed. Oh no, we won't get to 19. I will do 19. So you will find in 19, she is supposed to be a bonne ménagère. She's supposed to be a good housekeeper, and if you're rich, a good housekeeper means running the house staff.
Yeah. So she needs to be
which we talked about kind of with Northanger Abbey as well.
Yeah.
Catherine wasn't going to be doing the housework. She was going to be running the house staff, making sure they're in line.
Which her mom thought she would suck at anyway.
She would not. She wouldn't do good at it. Probably because she'd be like Edna and wouldn't be tough enough with them.
Yes.
And make sure they do their jobs right. So then Edna goes up to her room. It's nighttime. She's mad. She's stomping around. She throws her wedding ring down, stamps on it. But she just wants to... It doesn't do anything because it's on the carpet. She's stomping on her ring on carpet. So she needs something. So she picks up a glass and she smashes it and she's mad. And she can't even do this. She can't even get this release of anger because the maid shows up right away. And Edna's like, just leave it till morning. And the maid's like, no, you might step on it and cut yourself. I gotta clean it up now. So she can't even, the frustration, she can't even be mad in her room without somebody coming in to help. Just like Viola can't even be mad in her room without somebody trying to feed her. So the other thing I thought was really neat is, not neat, but I guess indicative, again, of some of the problems. In this era, Edna has her room. The husband and wife slept in separate rooms. They had their own chambers. Rich people had separate living accommodations.
Isn't necessarily a bad idea, especially if you've got
it's not.
a snorer.
I kind of wish I had my own room sometimes. All the times. Oh, I'm glad my wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
I think this is a big deal that she's thrown the ring and stomped it on the ground. And it doesn't do anything, but it's, it's so symbolic. And then to be so angry that you smash. And also, so she smashes the vase, but it's probably a vase that Leonce picked out meticulously and is very proud of it.
Everything out meticulously.
Likes to stare at it.
Exactly. And then the maid finds her ring and is like, here, madame. And she puts it back on.
Put this back on.
I can't get away. She's locked into this house and this life. So that takes us to our last chapter here, chapter 18. Next morning rolls around. And she's really irritable. She just wants to do something, and Mr. P is like, hey, I want to buy some stuff for the library. You want to come with me? And she's like, dude, why do we have to buy stuff for the library? We have so much stuff in this house. And I love Leonce's line. He says the way to become rich is to make money, not to save it.
Which I've always heard the opposite.
Okay.
Rich people don't spend, rich people save their money.
A lot of times.
They make money, but they also save it.
They do. They have so much disposable money that spending a lot of it doesn't really matter. But it reminds me of, I had a roommate when I lived in Texas, and he was always confounded by my lack of spending. And he said to me the one day that the value of money is in its use, not in saving it. Yeah, okay, well, I'll spend it someday. I'm not going to spend it now, thanks.
Spend it as I get it. Well,
exactly.
We remember Mom and Dad let me have a friend move into the house,
right?
In the early 2000s. Which was a terrible idea, but she saved. She never spent money. She saved so much so that to the point where she seemed impoverished because she would only eat cans of butter beans and shop at thrift stores, and she would not go to the movies. She would not go out to eat. She changed, like, everything she did on her own. She would do her own, as much of her own car mechanic work as she could learn. Like, she had a lot of money saved. Like, I know
I'm a big advocate of that, though. There's a lot of very simple stuff that you can do on your car yourself that you don't need to. The one that always gets me is, you know, you take it to the dealer, they'll charge you like $50 to change your air filters, which literally takes like 30 seconds to do. So people, if you know nothing about cars, you can at the minimum change your air filters in like 30 seconds for the cabin, and like maybe 2 minutes if you have to unscrew some things for the engine air filters. Like, change your own air filters, people. Come on, it's so easy to do. You don't have to pay someone to do it for you.
I really like doing things on my own, not necessarily for saving money, but for two reasons. One, I like knowing how to do them. So, like,
yes,
I like knowing how to fix the sink or the car or whatever. But also, I don't love interacting with people. So, if I don't have to ask someone for help, I'm not going to.
Well, the other thing is, in our modern age, it is so simple to learn how to do something on your own. I mean, when we were kids, you had to order those Time Life do-it-yourself books that were hardcover, and like, how do you, like, static pictures? Man, I can YouTube
literally anything.
You know, the exact make and model year of my car, and the dude will show you exactly how to do it. Like, it's so easy to do. Like, there's no. Anyway, off my soapbox on learning how to do things. Like, I've done so much home repair stuff, and I remember those Time Life home repair books, and I'm like, man, as a kid, I was like, is that what I have to do to learn how to do things? I don't know. Man, YouTube, dude, you just do it, and some pro will show me how to do it. I've taken apart my refrigerator. I've done, you know, the garbage disposal. Nice. I've done toilets, car stuff. I mean, you name it. It's so easy to do on YouTube.
I want to be able to do my own house stuff. I just said to Ben the other day, I was like, how do you become a carpenter? He's like, years of apprenticeship, Mare. Years. I'm like, oh.
YouTube. Man, YouTube. That's how you do it. You buy some wood, YouTube, and figure it out. You can probably build a house. All right, so anyway, Edna's real irritable. She's like, man, I don't want to look at more stuff for the library. Mr. P says, you know what, I'm going. He goes out, and she's just hung up on Robert. She can't get him out of her head, keeps thinking about him. So she's like, you know what, I haven't seen our friends from the summer. I'm going to go see Mrs. Ratignolle. She goes to their house, and they're more French. They have parties, and they have friends over, soirees, and that's like their neighborhood. That's like the talk of the neighborhood. You go over, you get an invite to the Ratignolles. Apparently the Pontelliers have not gotten an invite to the Ratignolles because they've not gone, right? I mean, is that the assumption?
I don't know. I would think.
Right. Quick note here, and maybe you can help correct me because I'm a dude. But when she goes in, I was a little taken aback first, and I had to like do some research. But Mrs. Ratignolle, when she gets there, she's wearing a negligee.
I know.
And I was just like, wait a minute. Like, to me, in modern times, a negligee is basically lingerie, right? Like, isn't it like...
I mean, yes, it is. But like,
isn't
what
it?
Is it? What's the original, like...
Well, literally in French, it means given little thought. So it's a light dressing gown that it's your schlubby clothes. It's what you throw on, basically.
Uh-huh. A woman.
But yeah, I was like, oh, she's wearing a negligee. Oh, but no, apparently I guess it's just a light dress. It's a simple dress. It's not something you'd go out in. It's house clothes. You're like, oh, this whole thing? Whatever, I just threw it on.
I'm going to just go ahead and imagine Madame Ratignolle's just walking around in a teddy. And she's like, oh, hey, come on in. And is like, I'm a little uncomfortable.
This is a little weird. But anyway, so Edna's brought over her sketches, and she's basically fishing for compliments at this point. She's like, hey, check my stuff out. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Is it good? Do you like it? Do you like it? And
she knows Adele, Madame Ratignolle, Adele, is going to give her compliments. Yes. Like, exactly. She has absolutely no taste in that. Like, she doesn't... Edna knows that she doesn't know about art, so she's not going to be rude. Right?
She loves what she sees, exactly. So she's happy. loves it. Edna's not really jealous. And it says, I have the note that she's sad that Adele is not more troubled. I don't know why I have that note.
About her life and her,
I guess,
her marriage. Yeah. Because my biggest note is that...
Oh, she's not jealous because... So after Edna sees how the Rattenmules live and what a wonderful little family they have, and she's not jealous. She's like, I don't want that.
Right.
That's not for me.
Well, she feels depressed, but it's not because she longs for that life. I think she's not soothed and she feels depressed probably because she's like, this life doesn't fit me. I don't want that life, but what else is
she
there?
feels sorry for Adele because she says she lives a colorless existence, which never uplifted its possessor beyond the region of blind contentment. So, man, she's the masses. She's, we got the opiate of the masses, right? Entertainment. So she goes over to see Adele, and in modern, Adele's probably just like, she's hanging around in her sweats watching Netflix, and she's happy as a clam, man. And Edna's like, is that all you want to do? She's like, yeah, look, I just binged this show 3 times over, and isn't this great? And Edna's like, no, that's terrible.
I would recommend, though, never telling a stay-at-home mom that they live a colorless existence. Cause...
Yes, true. Well, I don't think she's... I mean, Madame Rattenmule's wealthy. I don't think she's
not your...
They're all stay-at-home moms in this era.
I guess Madame Rattenmule's like modern housewife of New Orleans. That's what she'd be.
Exactly.
She'd be one of the stars.
Exactly. But I also liked this where... So Edna says she would... there's no anguish that ever visited Adele's soul. She would never have the taste of life's delirium. Edna vaguely wondered what she meant by life's delirium. So she is cognitively processing her own thoughts in real time in this chapter. She's like, oh, she's never going to experience that. What do I mean by that, though? I don't even know.
And why do I feel bad for her not experiencing it?
For not fearing it. Right. So Edna wants... Can we say that Edna is like... Is she a little emo? Is she...
Totally. Oh my god.
Is she our goth girlfriend? She wants to be depressed.
I mean, it describes some ennui in here. I don't think it gets any... I mean, using the word ennui, I don't think it gets any more...
Yeah. You mean ennui?
Ennui.
Ennui.
Hopeless ennui.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our short passage this week. We still had a long conversation over a short passage.
We did. Because so much below the surface is happening here. So much about life.
Not much has happened. I mean, we went to church, took a nap, had dinner, Robert left, we go back to New Orleans. I don't want to look at stuff for the library. Here, Adele, look at my pictures. I mean, that is the action that has happened in this book, but there's so much more that's happening in Adele's thoughts and in her
Edna's
figuring
thoughts.
thing.
Nothing's happening in Adele's.
Nothing's happening in Adele's. That's why she sucks, man. Whatever, Adele.
I like Adele except for her slight racism that we just...
Oh, she doesn't like Mexicans? Is that this part?
She really has only ever met one. Which, I mean, that's what racists do.
Exactly. But the one she met, she liked. She liked the one she met. Yeah. That one, he was... But then she thought he was great, but he stabbed his wife. So, I don't know. Never would have suspected that.
Oy.
Oh. I just saw... Oh, that reminds me of... There's I think his reporter in New York that had a Twitter thread a few days ago where he talked about his neighbor came over. Did you see this?
No.
Maybe I'll have to tell you this. Should I tell you the story on the pod or off pod?
I don't. We can always cut it out.
Okay, so this reporter in New York was like, hey, I got to relate this story. Totally true, just happened. This guy comes over, knocks on the reporter like grows tomatoes in his backyard. It's New York City, so the yards are small. But he's got some potted tomato plants. And the guy comes over and he says, hey, I saw you growing tomatoes. My mom just died. She loved green tomatoes. I wanna fry up some green tomatoes for her in her memory. Could I take a tomato? And the guy says, no, man, you can take 3 or 4 tomatoes. Just, go ahead. He's like, oh, okay, great. Thanks. And then he's like, you know what? Just, can I take a whole plant? He's like, sure, take a plant. So he takes a tomato plant. Next morning, the reporter goes out and he sees that he's missing another tomato plant. And so he asked the guy, hey, what happened? The guy said, oh, yeah, last night I came over and, I took another tomato plant last night. And the guy's like, what, you mean you stole a tomato plant from me? And he's like, that they got into like a heated argument and they started like fighting over it. And then I forget what happened next, but basically like the guy, I think he runs into him again later, or he asks like the grocer about the guy, or he doesn't see the guy for a while or something. And like he asks the local grocer, like, hey, did you know this guy? And he's like, oh yeah, I knew him. He just got arrested the other day for killing his mother. Yeah, right?
What? Did not see that coming.
No, I didn't either. So that's Adele's story about the one nice Mexican she met. But he stabbed his wife. It kind of reminded me of that. But anyway.
What?
I know, crazy.
So he's like insane. Honoring his mother by getting these tomato plants, and then also
I guess the guy.
Oh my god!
I don't know. It was you got to read the whole thing for the context, but it was a good story.
Do you think he killed his mom and sat her up at the table and ate green tomatoes with her?
Oh man, that would be beyond. That'd be like horror movie.
He like dressed
bizarre.
up as his dad and had dinner with his mom.
Oh wow. I don't. We're okay.
Okay.
We went on this too long. All right, so that's this week's episode. Tomorrow, like I said, you're gonna have extra long reading because it'll be my miss section, and then we're going to the end of the book. So if you're reading along with us at home, let's finish The Awakening. Let's wake up. Let's see the full deal.
Wake up.
So hit us up. What do you think? We're on all the socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We are at CYSTpod. You can send us a note, cystpod@gmail.com. We'd love to do some more mailbag stuff. So get those cards and letters coming in virtually. Tell a friend. Get a little book club going around the pod. We've got free books that we have read to you free of charge. Just got to have a device to listen to. Spotify on your computer, podcast app on your phone. It's so easy nowadays. Anything else this week, Mare?
No. Nothing.
All right.
Not a thing.
Well, when you're in Zoom class, make sure you unmute when the teacher calls on you. Until next time, this has been Classic Just Like